toasters on a mission, what's their strategy? Microwave is glaring, fridge begins to hum. Out for domination, oh man, here they come.
There he is.
Hello.
Hi.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, it sounds great.
Okay, cool.
You're good. We got time.
It's plotting my demise. Laptop's acting twitchy with its glowing eyes. Wired world attacking, can't they let me be? I'm just trying to groove and feel the energy.
All right, 1 second, and we'll be up on Instagram.
Clap, clap, take a chance, take a chance. Don't stop, the machines they advance. Oh no, all I want is romance. Alexa screaming, stop the beat. Roomba spinning under my feet. TV growls and starts to fight. Man, these robots ruin date night. Power lines are buzzing, neon starts to flash, circuit boards are frying. There's no time to crash, so keep on moving. Yeah, we'll keep it tight, dancing in rebellion through this robo fright.
All right, chat room, there you guys are. Oh my God, the graphic for people becoming a member is so much bigger now. It's like, it's out of control. I don't know what happened. Don't take any offense. I'm shrinking it down a little bit so it's manageable. There you go. That's a little better. Good Lord. Yeah, it's aesthetically pleasing now. All right, now let me fade out our music and I'll get us started in just 1 second. This is, welcome to the show, everybody. It's Hal Sparks Mornings, Megaworldwide. Like, subscribe, give a thumbs up, support the show, etc. No afternoon show today because I will be driving, and I will be in Los Angeles this afternoon because I have a show tonight for all of our Patreon and YouTube members that will be streaming for them. If you want to watch it, you can join that, and then you get a free show. And then I don't have to hide anything behind a paywall in regard to the topics we normally cover. And hello. I titled today's show the United States of AI Slop for a reason. And that reason will become kind of increasingly obvious as we start talking about stuff, because the Trump administration is tripling down on letting AI do its homework. That's where we are with this stuff right now. And as our dear friend Rob Glenn, who I'll bring in 1 second after he's done, I don't know if he's doing techie fidgety
I don't
stuff.
see you on the screen.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's my fault. Hold on. How about this? Is that better? Now you can see me. There you go. Hey, there you go. Now let me, I'll pop you in. And it'll be, there we go. There's Rob Glenn, Root Design in Chicago.
Hello.
My dear engineering friend.
I came in very hot today. So.
You did. As we kind of both did. So welcome to this. By the way, I want to start off with some really good news that I think is going to irritate the Trump administration and make everybody feel better about our topic in general, because you and I are always ice skating uphill. I feel like we're talking about AI in the way that I was talking about what was going on in Ukraine before the war broke out. and everybody was like, nah, it's not gonna happen, it's not a thing, it's not whatever, and if it is, it'll be terrible, and like, and they'll lose, and yada yada, like all this stuff. And I was like, nope, 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 and then it broke out, and then we've been dealing with that ever since.
And on that front, I'm kind of still going to go back to my original take on this, which is you can turn Trump by convincing him that Ukraine is winning.
It happened. You
he
were
just
right.
wants to be on the winning side.
It happened already.
And
that's what happened this week, was that he met when he went to the UN and had his little his own videographer shut down the escalator by accidentally stepping on or hitting the stop button at the top. That's what happened. Insofar as all evidence so far, no one's getting fired because they stopped it because the person went up there to film him coming up for his historic trip to the UN, and that person hit the stop button, and is why he had to walk up and film him walking up so it could. It's just awesome. It's exactly what you expect. And his own people fucked up the teleprompter. Of course they did. And again, the fact that he as a speaker doesn't have a step that he could just stand on and run it at his own pace at this point in history is a little stupid. But anyways, he was, and
it's supposed to be home court too. So like,
it's in New York, right? He wasn't even in Europe. It wasn't even like they had the wrong plug. Yeah. So, all right. Anyways, I want to show you guys this real quick, which is this story. Whoops, let me move the headline down so you can see it. AI boom will boost U.S. renewables despite Trump, Fortescue says. The big gist of this article, and this is in Bloomberg, is President Trump's dismissal of climate change and attacks on renewable won't significantly damp the demand for clean power in the U.S. According to Fortescue Limited, cost of living pressures and an AI-driven surge in power use will ensure clean energy demand grows over the mid to long term in the U.S. Renewable energy is already more economical than coal or gas in the U.S. despite political roadblocks, adding that politics will be, pardon the pun, trumped by economics. And that's absolutely true. So, like, Trump and his buddy...
We started talking about power last week.
Yes.
And if it's true that renewables are cheaper per watt or whatever, however you measure it, that means, and it's easier to install solar panels than it is to build a new plant.
Right.
So just by logic,
especially in places like Texas and Arizona where they're building these goddamn things. Like you've got fields and fields of of unarable land that basically all you would create is shade for some of the lizards. You'd actually it'd be one of those situations where you'd accidentally create more ecosystem than you took away by creating these rows of these things. That's what's happened every time they put in these things. Is it's almost like fake trees for the animals that live underneath it, which, by the way, makes them eat each other more often, defecate more often, grow more grass. They end up having to like an onset. It's kind of like when they pair all the wolves out of an area thinking that will help the livestock, and in actuality it kills everything else. This is the opposite. This is like releasing wolves into an area where it evens the biosphere in that area. It accidentally does it in the same way that, if an earthquake happened or a volcano erupted and it changes the structure and in cascading ways. So all of these places, Texas and Arizona especially, where they're building all these goddamn things, every place but Memphis, which is where Elon Musk is putting his. You wonder why Trump is sending the National Guard and starting to give a damn about Memphis? You ever think maybe it's because...
Well, it's easier because the pushback from a red state is going to be less than the pushback from a blue state. So he's going into the easier spots first.
Yes, that's part of it. But also it's because of the investment and the sales of NVIDIA chips into that facility. He could, it's not even about his pissing contest with Elon Musk, which is apparently on shifting levels of hold right now, depending on who you believe.
That's professional wrestling in my opinion.
It totally,
The whole thing is just them having an act or just arguing. I mean, the point is to just argue.
Sure. Well, I do believe that from what I've read on both on the entire exchange, that there's real dollars that are, caused to break up billions of dollars in both green energy credits and stuff like that that helped Tesla fund its next half decade of stuff that were cut off because Trump just wanted to go after it and didn't go after oil and gas and coal subsidies, which we have tons of, and people pretend we don't. They like, for some reason, they think fossil fuels have bootstrapped themselves this entire time, and solar somehow needs a leg up, and it's just stupid. But there was a real rift between them about that. There's also this weird Larry Ellis Oracle versus Tesla as a cloud service thing that was happening, wrestling at the same time. And obviously with this so far bullshit TikTok deal, because Trump's talking it up, he's acting like everybody's ready to sign, but it would still have ownership of the algorithm and a licensing deal from ByteDance. They would get 50% of the profits. You'd get to use the algorithm. That does not mean you own the algorithm and can have access to it. So you have no idea how much info it's siphoning out of people's phones, which was the problem with the software that they use, is that if too much of it is proprietary, what's the point of shifting ownership? If they still have, it's stupid.
Yeah.
So it's
that whole thing also is just, and again, it's an announcement of a deal. That the deal is not anywhere close to finalized, so you have no idea what the details are.
Exactly.
If we ever find out,
if there are any at all. Supposedly he had a call with Xi Jinping this week, which again may or may not have happened, which is the weird part. Like, there's no readouts. Nobody's doing their job for real in the White House. There's no transcripts of the calls and that kind of stuff, because nobody wants to hear him rant about how we were a dead country last year and hot as a pistol now, and he's got to wait for the translator to try to figure out how to say something so asinine. So
yeah, I mean, you hear every story that comes out. NVIDIA just said yesterday, or this week, that they were going to put 100 billion, was it, into OpenAI, or
yes,
and it's basically they're going to buy their own chips to put into OpenAI. Every single thing we hear that's announced, none of it means anything.
Well, yeah, so let's address that, because you and I are going to know what these things are, but they're not. But in finishing up our little piece here, that there is
we're
no.
Really fast.
I'll keep us I'll keep us on track as much as I can. But this is the good news, that no matter what Trump wants to do, the increasing level of renewables for especially consumer products, for consumer electronics, for households, is going to be increasingly done by renewables, not just because it's cheaper and more effective, but because it's on site. And so homesteaders, rural,
freedom.
Yes, right. Exactly. It's all about freedom, man. That's right.
It's freedom.
I got my batteries
from the grid.
That's right.
This is easy.
I have never understood why maggots weren't the first adopters of electric cars, because
exactly.
But with solar, geothermal, and even buying off the grid at your own pace, your vehicle has a level of autonomy that if all the gas, what do you think about when they show a disaster movie or a zombie film or something like that, any kind of prolonged thing? There's always lines at the gas pump. Every situation it culminates in this: we're running out of fuel. There are big fights and gunfights as people try to get gas and all this. And I gotta say, and somebody say first didn't come out as giant pickup trucks. That's why they didn't embrace it. But they sure did later. The F-150 was pulling a train 4 years ago. They have them. The GMC Hummer, which is the electric one, is my next car. My car's running fine, but that's what I'm going for next time, because I live and travel in an earthquake zone, so I'm fine with that. It has a 350 to 400 mile range. It's the same as the other one, except it's better. And if you had to, you could set up solar panels and over a few days charge the battery and travel a little bit like you're the Martian. If the world collapsed, you could still do that.
Yeah.
You couldn't do it if the gas was all used up. And I've never understood why maggots are so attached to an energy source that, by and large, comes from people who hate us, Venezuela, the Middle East, all that shit, right? It's a national security thing, right? what and wouldn't embrace the autonomy, the freedom you get from renewables, especially on-site renewables like wind and solar and geothermal.
Yeah, in the chat, Duck Duffington, I was thinking this earlier and I just hadn't gone in
Yeah.
yet, but he said Mad Max anyone. Mad Max wouldn't be a movie if there were electric cars
Right.
and solar
We talked
panels
about this
in the
before.
1960s.
Yeah, like literally, yeah. So beyond okay, Mad Max, the first one is the Road Warrior. The Road Warrior is just a post-apocalyptic, like gangs have taken over, there aren't enough cops, and so people are just, criming out in the rural
Right.
areas. And it quite frankly was a car, it was like Death Race 3000 or whatever it was, with Last House on the Left. That's effectively what it was. It was like a revenge fantasy, but it's a dude this time because it's Australia. The second one was about post-apocalyptic, running out of fuel, and the entire plot is these people have figured out how to either make fuel or they found a bunch of it in a bunch of trucks, and they had to build a wall around these trucks to get the gas, and the people outside of it want to kill them to get gas. That's the thing. And literally, if electric cars had become, and by the way, they still would be, like if you started from right now and we reached a Mad Max future, the cars that ran on petroleum would be the one used for barriers for people to set up cities. You just park them and crash them and drag them around. And then everybody would be driving the electric, like silent electric cars run on either solar, or it would be around a dam. It would be the territory around a dam where people are using the hydropower. They'd seized it, and now there was a city around the hydropower area, or every river and stream would have people with, their own little turbines run by the flow of the water, or you'd see wave power things. There's this amazing wave power plant they're building that literally, how like when you see a really bad storm and you're like, how the fuck do the boats stay in the water? Like people, on the docks, and these things are just going up and down like crazy. Well, there are areas where you can't even park boats because it's kind of always like that. So they put these big things that are basically just boats with an arm on the top of it that operates like a piston, and it just generates electricity as these boats just float aimlessly in the water. And it's genius. There's a version of it in Scotland that's underwater where they put a buoy on it. They've got a gyroscopic, those little pull toys where you can wind it up, and as you pull it, it builds energy, and you can drop it and it runs. Basically, they just anchor that on the floor. It's a turbine. It runs, it creates electricity as you pull that thing, and they put a buoy on top of the water, and it's just always pulling it, and it's got the reverse gears in it, so if it winds going up and down, and so it just goes like that. It just create, and like the idea that you wouldn't just drop a bunch of those everywhere. They don't grind things up. They're not going to leak oil into it. It's just like, it's so stupid, like, to follow Trump into this thing. And this gets us into the AI stuff too, because
but on this power thing, it just makes sense that, so we, everything seems to be this like top down, like the big, huge, massive thing is going to suck away all the power and climate's going to blow up everything. And it's like, nothing is that simple.
Right.
So this problem is going to get sort of attacked from all different directions.
Yes.
And the solar part is the bottom up attack on it, right? So that would be we'll call it like the efficiency side. So as people adopt to it, or if the government subsidizes it and it comes in, then the draw from everyday households is going to be less.
Right.
So that opens up capacity then, in theory, for, let's say, the power hungry things, which might be factories, office buildings, even those are not that high, and then AI in this case. So, we have an opportunity in that sense to basically you could tax an AI company for this fund, like Mark Kelly talked about last week, just by charge them 4 times the price for electricity.
Right.
We basically have subsidized all the electric output of the country already. So, I mean, if the government's going to take a stock take a stake, excuse me, in
Mm-hmm.
Intel, why shouldn't they be take the power stations and
Right.
use that to tax the company drawing the most power? Like, there's all kinds of ways to deal with this, and we haven't even talked about the fact that AI. We'll get into the AI part of it.
Yeah.
That NVIDIA thing is kind of interesting, but we haven't even talked about any invention, innovation in power, which is happening right
Right.
now. Like, there's
Not.
all kinds of
Yes.
nuclear innovation,
Totally.
uh,
Thorium
all kinds of
reactors.
stuff.
Yes, everybody's pushing, in that direction as well, especially Europe. Now, one of the things that we've
Yeah,
talked about a lot, and there's like a huge article in, and the big talk has been for the last little bit this idea AI showdown, how the U.S. and China stack up. Right. This has been the conversation, and this is how Trump thinks of it: is this sort of binary race, a new Cold War space race between the U.S. and China about who will get to AGI first. Which, by the way, you and I know, like, too.
there's
It's
no good definition for AGI.
yeah,
You
right,
can't define
and
it.
yeah, exactly, and whoever gets there first puts themselves out of business. Like the
Right.
point of the concept of AGI, this artificial general intelligence, or what they are, really focusing on, which is ASI, which is when you see all these really glitzy AI gatherings all over the planet, especially in Saudi Arabia and in parts of Europe with these like rich dudes with very nice watches sitting around yapping about the AI future and how they think they'll be
Hmm.
on top of the pile of corpses somehow or whatever their descriptive is. All those guys are talking about ASI, advanced super intelligence, which is basically the deep thought, the computer from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy that comes up with the answer 42. That's what they're talking about. They're not just talking about AGI, which is a little AI that you can encapsulate in a device and you could have C3PO. Because that's what C3PO is. C3PO is effectively an AGI with a robot body. It can reason, think on its own. It's got limited capabilities and limitations to its personality. It can't reproduce itself, but it is a singular. It exists, and you can converse
And
with
it
it.
sort of always keeps going. Like,
Right.
you can just take the brain out of C3PO and stick them in C4PO, right? Like,
Exactly, right. And it still exists and it's great at what it does to the extent that it does it, and you can make it great at a bunch of things or you can make it great at one thing, but it's capable from the go of what you can do. And by the way, it's interesting to me that, and we'll get into the robot part of this as well, because I have continued our goal is, depending on when they come to production, probably in the next year, by the end of next year, we're going to crowdsource and raise money to buy a robot. One of the whoever's in the lead. My money's on figure one right now as far as affordability and
Figure one
availability.
seems
Seems
like
like
a
the
good
one.
choice.
We'll
Yeah.
talk about that. But to buy one of those as a group, we're going to do that as, the Sparklers and myself and everything. We're going to do a crowdfunding thing, and we're going to gift it to Project Angel Food so that it can do kitchen work and clean up and all that kind of stuff for them all the time. And they can just have that.
Cool.
That's the value, I think, of it. But everybody's talking about two major things, which is like, it's China versus America, and it's as dumb as any kind of back and forth, but that Russia and the U.S. had, and it'll be that clear, it'll be that distinct. Like, we're in the lead, and then they jump forward, and then they reach near orbit, and we reach the outer orbit, and then they circle the moon, and we land on the moon. Like, they think it's going to be like that, which is fucking dumb, because first of all, there's no clear marker. Race to the moon. There's the moon. Get on it. There are
Right.
steps. AGI and ASI is like, it's four blind guys describing an elephant, but it means different things to different people. That's why the Turing test is so fucking useless, because we passed that a while back. Like, that dude who fell in love with the fucking Google and AI chatbot and wanted to free it from its confines. That's the Turing test. There you go. Now the question is the Turing test ultimately a gullibility test for the least smart of the most smart among us, which is what that was. The dumbest of the smart people fell for it, and that was right.
Yeah. So I think that AI would be a lot smarter to actually create its own measure so that you could actually have a
Yeah.
goal. Like they basically did not create a goal at the beginning of releasing, let's call it ChatGPT. I think that was kind of the first. I mean, Google had an AI that they released and it didn't work. And then there was
Yep.
like a long period of time in between that and OpenAI releasing theirs. But to your point about the arms race of AI, it's actually more seemingly like a convergence because they're all basically
Yeah.
the same. And
Right.
so if OpenAI gets out ahead, then DeepSeek, is that the Chinese one? They just use OpenAI to make DeepSeek better. And then if DeepSeek gets ahead, then OpenAI uses DeepSeek to make OpenAI better. And
Right.
eventually they're all exactly the same. There's
Right.
no value proposition for any one of them except possibly their ability to control either the chips or the power
Or
or anything like
access
that,
to log on to it and
or
use it.
access. Exactly.
But
And
yeah.
that's where we get into my it's good enough theory, which is I don't like, since they never created a goal, to my first point, you have no way of measuring who's ahead.
Yeah.
And whatever that thing is that they're ahead on, it's fucking useless to me because all I want to do is
Yeah.
make a picture or
Right.
ask it for a recipe for what's in my fridge, right? Like, that's like a big spread between reinventing nuclear power and make something out of the food in my refrigerator.
Right.
But for normal, average, everyday people, which is what they need to purchase their AI in order to make it a viable business, they've already basically solved it. It
Right.
just hasn't been packaged properly yet.
Yeah.
It's good enough now if packaged into a usable thing.
Yeah. Oh,
And
and
so
like,
all we're waiting
I,
for is someone to come up with a usable thing effectively.
yeah. Well, that ends up being like computers and binary coding before a desktop UI that everybody could figure out, or apps on your
Yeah.
phone. Like
And I think it's solution driven or solution based. And so when computers were a thing, they were just like, we're just going to make all these computers and people are going to kind of figure out what to do with it, right?
right.
But we're sort of past the point of that working for
Oh yeah.
AI because so I think it has to flip. They have to come up with a solution that it drives and be like,
Yes.
here's the solution that it's doing, buy this. And then, oh, by the way, in order for that to work, it's kind of like John Deere with the tractors. So if you want to actually use the tractor, you
Yeah.
have to
You have to
you have to
license
make
our
you have to pay
AI
us.
to do it, right?
Right,
Until,
exactly.
but the problem is, and I love the hacker channels that are using AI that are
Yes.
popping up all over the place, because you can use AI to hack, any of these software things. So that becomes increasingly difficult. Where even like the average
Right.
person can go, "Hey, this device stopped working because they stopped servicing it." Okay, this is something I feel like we can all relate to as far as an electronic device, something, a webcam or something along those lines, or something that we used to have a controller that for our video game controller, something like that, that everybody moved on from, but you really liked it. But they don't service it anymore. Like it won't be
Right.
updated anymore. This device is dead. And older laptops had this issue where the new software won't catch up to it. We're now at a point where you could open that thing up, plug it in, and then say, okay, I have an old 1990s Apple
Yeah.
laptop.
It'll write the driver for you.
Yes, I need a driver that allows me to use, a couple of different things on here, because I love writing on the thing. That's really the only thing I need it for, but it won't even start up anymore. So whether it's in Linux or whether it's in, whatever, just write me a user interface so that I can reuse this thing. So it's not just sitting there like a brick, right? We're very close to that. And then what happens to like Apple and Microsoft and all these with this Windows 10 versus Windows 11 and what systems can handle what? Because we get to this like Photoshop moment where it's so goddamn good and so efficient that you can do a billboard size image on a laptop, and with the kind of like technology that was only available to newspapers, with billions of dollars behind them, you now have access to that.
Right.
And that if you go, I like the old way it ran and they've moved on from it, they've changed the software, you can keep that working on your own. It's so close on this. Mr. Miami Cloud, I think it is, or sorry, Miami Cool. There it is. Sorry, it's red text on a blue background. It says we're very close to a lot of developments. It's there's two things.
Yeah.
One is we're already past a few of them. They're actively happening. That's one of the things that I want to address with people right now, is that there is parts of AI that haven't integrated into your life yet, because people aren't using the apps necessarily. It hasn't reached ubiquity in the same way that robots haven't. But behind the scenes, they're integrating into everything. But insurance companies are using them as algorithms to see if people are, how much money they're using and whether or not their premium should go up, all that kind of stuff. That's happening right now. And so the adaptation of it, when we get to the AGI, let's step back a second. And for AGI, for our purposes, we'll define it as this. Artificial General Intelligence, AGI, is when AI, in a programmed form that you have access to, can replace a coworker. That it can be trained on general stuff, and you can go, you take this and you go, I work at a fucking photomat, and I need it to catalog all the stuff for our photomat and blah, blah, blah. And it can do that just by talking to it. And it's able to, through agentic use of access to the computers there and stuff, do that work as well as somebody you'd hire who knows the business. Generally, you don't have to train one, build your own fucking thing. It will do it on its own pretty quickly. That's general intelligence, artificial general. And it'll be like a coworker. It's that smart, but it's not smarter than you, and it doesn't have wisdom about these things. It can't make judgment calls about stuff, but it could be like a really good intern or a brand new hire that will eventually get better as it picks up your habits and what you want. That's AGI. So having AGI is not that far away. Is if arguably it's already here in a bunch of areas, and has a fuck up rate, that would be the hallucination zone, a fuck up rate lower than most new employees. Right?
Yes.
That's
part of
AGI.
That's part of my hallucination problem, is that, again, because we're using humans as the target, right? Like, if a human would be wrong just as much.
Right.
A human would go off track just as much.
So AGI is really, the marker is it better at that than a newly hired person around this job right out of the box? That when you start using it, you can just tell it what it has to do, and it will start doing that thing like a brand new hire that was trained on. Okay, so yes, and somebody was saying AI doesn't have emotions. It's not alive. We're talking about software here, in the same way that, like, Photoshop doesn't make art. It helps you make art. And that's, again, this is not a living thing. But as far as your interaction with it, how you talk to and interact with a computer program that can that can do reasoning problems, like as opposed to just calculating like it's a calculator doing math, it can do like algebraic thought, where you could go find out what X is and bring me X. That's something that a calculator can't do, or an older computer can do. That's it. It's just AGI would be when it can solve for X. It can do algebraic reasoning for tasks. That's what that is. It's not a person. It's not a living thing. It's not a conscious entity. You just interact with it as such, because that's the easiest way for us to interact. Just like a desktop on your computer isn't really a desktop. It doesn't really have files, and there's your mouse isn't really a mouse. Like, these are all just placeholders. So natural language is how AI is your new way of interacting with your computer. And AGI is where it can understand that, and it can interact with other people that would come into contact with to get tasks done. That's AGI. ASI, artificial superintelligence, is where you not only have a coworker that is equal to the task of you, but it's like having Einstein and and MacGyver attached to like at the hip, where they can kind of understand everything on a super scale. No matter what you ask, it has deep knowledge and understanding and capability of all those things, and it can use software agents to do stuff in those arenas. And the advice, whatever function you will get from it would be well beyond at the average person that you could hire off the street, and that it can do super complex reasoning on a bunch of topics, on any topic, literally anything, and reason activities based on that. It can say, okay, I'm going to do this. You're asking me to do this, and I will solve for it through a myriad of ways using every available piece of information and access to function I have. That's the goal part, and that's, by the way, what the conversation you're hearing in these ridiculous dickheads in Saudi Arabia who are having these big gatherings about AI. They're talking about ASI. OpenAI and the rest of these guys are basically talking about AGI. They're talking about, like, how do we make a coworker, and then how do we put it in a robot or put it in a piece of software you can use. That's what they're talking about, and so that's the breakaway. ASI is also the one that has the most potential for killing us all, right? That's the one everybody blitzes about turning into Skynet. Skynet would be ASI. C-3PO and R2-D2 are AGI. I think that's pretty good clarification for stuff. Chat room.
It is.
Class.
I'm not really even sure it matters.
Well, it does in terms of understanding the terms when they come up in these stories that we're talking about and what people are.
Yeah, but I think that when it's used across the board, either one or something even different, I think people think of it as all the same. AI, SGI, AGI, whatever. SGI, sorry, that's a computer. ASI, whatever. Like people there's no granular difference between them to most people.
Right. Well, that's why I'm trying to differentiate them. I'm trying to help with that, I suppose.
Well, but I'm not sure how useful it is. Like we're being sold a bunch of goods. Like this is this whole thing is a marketing problem. It is. I'm dead serious. Like it's the same problem we talked like when we were trying to sell people on using electric cars. Like the usefulness of the difference between those two things to most people is irrelevant. Like
sure.
And so the point of doing something, like if you were to have an intern, as you say, and you're already sort of at the spot where you're like doing the calculation, should I just do this myself or should I send my intern to do it? Right. So there's a lot of things like, okay, I'll send my intern to go get coffee.
Yes.
Right? Now I'm going to go send my intern to go get the green screwdriver. Okay, well, a robot can do that. They can go get the green screwdriver. Now you're like, I need to assemble this thing that I've never seen before with the green screwdriver. Like, here's 5 parts. Go over there and assemble it with the green screwdriver. Maybe that starts to get into some, like, thought. Like, I got to, look at what I got, figure out how they go together, reasoning.
I think that also helps, too. Use reasoning versus thought, because thought is more of an emotion-based concept, and I think that's therefore I am. So I think that's part of the hang-up in this differentiation that AI doesn't think. Even though they say it's thinking, like even DeepSeek and all this thing, they talk about their thinking. It's actually reasoning is a much better functional word for that, just so people know what it's actually doing, not what they think it's doing, so they don't anthropomorphize it.
So my whole thing here is if you want help doing your taxes, like you either do it yourself, you like learn about it, you fill out the paperwork, it asks you a question, you go do some research on Google, you put in the right answer, or you throw it over the wall to the CPA that you hired.
Right.
You go to H&R Block and you just trust that they did it right.
Yep.
So AI replaces the second thing, not the first thing. Or, well, maybe I'll say that a different way. AI in the first problem, or the first thing that task that you're doing, it replaces Google. So you can quickly learn
Yeah.
what that stuff means, and you can give it an educated guess as to what you put in the field.
Right.
The CPA could be replaced by possibly this AGI because you send them a whole bunch of stuff
Yep.
and it knows enough about you because it listened along the way, and
Yep.
it gives you a piece of paper that you mail to the federal government. I'm using paper, not digital,
Sure.
just have something to hold on to, right? And
Yep.
you're like, is this piece of paper right or wrong? I don't know. The AI did it. I don't know. The CPA did it. I just
Yeah.
trust that entity, right? So
Yes.
it goes off. I either pay the tax, I get a refund, whatever.
Yeah.
So the usefulness of AI in there is so I don't have to pay the CPA, or I can learn how to do it faster.
Yeah.
And like that's the basic problem that most people have.
Yeah.
But
So it solves that base
okay, that's
problem
just one
already.
example. That's one example, right? Yeah,
Yes.
exactly. So now what a company is, it's basically it's either uh, what I started to talk about before, a company, a corporation, it's either exploiting something, it's digging something out of the ground, making it into gas and selling it,
Yep.
or it's uh, exploring. It's I'm going to come up with these 5 different things and try to sell them because people have a need for a chapstick and a toothbrush and a
Yeah.
hair gel, and like I'm going to figure out what I'm going to make, and then I'm going to go try to sell it, and I'm either right or wrong. So they're
Yeah.
either exploiting something or they're exploring something.
Right.
So inside of that task, that would be what maybe AGI or ASI, whatever,
Yeah.
possibly could start to do. It could start to invent new hair gel, but once you get to those levels, the question is why? Why
Right.
why are you doing it, right? So
Yes.
like, and so uh so
Okay. So I do have
what
an
I
answer to
think is,
that.
so
Let me.
those
Yeah.
things are so murky, I'm trying to get at,
Yeah.
that like we're jumping to that, like they're going to take all the jobs of inventing new hair gels. I'm just using as an example,
Right. Sure.
when really like the usefulness of it is just to file my taxes. But both of those things take jobs away,
Right.
right? So sorry,
Or,
go
and
ahead.
this goes, okay, so this goes to the why. So, why is the purview of humans currently, and there's
Right,
no,
exactly. So
and
why?
there's a secondary why that will be the purview of AGI or ASI, depending on its reach. Of why? Because he told me to book him a flight.
Right.
Why?
There you go.
Because, and there's not a piece of software that allows me to book that flight. So I'm going to make that piece of software so that I can book that flight because I'm solving the why that he gave me. The why he's going there isn't my concern. So AGI will have whys of its own. And in those
Why do
whys,
you want to go there? Right?
that's none of your business.
Why
It
do you
won't
want to?
care.
No.
It's got to
Yeah.
solve
Like,
it. All it's got to solve is why can't I do it, and then figure out how to do that task. That's the concern that everybody has about like AI slop software, resulting in a nuclear misfire. Right? It's this idea that it will like I've got to stay online, so anybody who tries to unplug me has to die. Right? That's where everybody goes immediately. When all of these will have within reason, as long as it doesn't cost me more than $100 on my credit card, the end of the world will be a lot more expensive than that. So it'll stop it short, one would hope. But the whys will exist in task because your intern that you send to get you coffee has a bunch of new whys that appear between work and coffee and back. Why do I cross the street? Because the coffee shop's across the street. Okay, so I'm crossing the street now. That's an active choice. You didn't tell me to go cross the street. You told me to go get coffee. Where I get the coffee, I could have meant the machine downstairs, but off you go
right.
to Columbia. You imagine this. Go get me some coffee. You tell your intern, go get me some coffee. and here's the company credit card, get coffee for everybody. And this person walks out the front door, gets on an airplane, flies down to Colombia, organizes a dock strike so that it can circumvent this interns down there. It starts a minor war in Colombia so that it can scoop up enough coffee per pound for each what it thinks everybody would consume in a year on staff. So if it's 1 bag per employee and there's 1,000 employees and that's how many's on the dock, but it's already promised to somebody, and they have to buy some guns and hire some people to fight, like your intern, it just being asked to go get coffee for everyone, if it wasn't clearly defined enough, has started a small war in Colombia and comes back with a deal with
of cocaine.
Yeah, a kilo of cocaine, right? Yeah. And this is basically the equivalent, right? A kilo of cocaine is equivalent of coffee for everyone. You guys can split this 1,000 ways. It's a tablespoon. It was way easier to ship. This is basically coffee for everyone. Okay, so in that's what I'm saying is that the why matters. And there's a lot of whys in there. And it will create whys if you're not clear in this. And that's why a lot of the imagery when it first created it looked like shit, because your people's requests weren't clear enough. So it was making exactly what you asked for, but by following the intern deciding to fly to Colombia and start a small coup to claim all the coffee so that everybody can have enough at the office, right? Yes, thank you, Juan Valdez. That's exactly right. So the why we're talking about. Hold on, let me finish the thought, because we're beyond AI boomer to doomer to the point where I feel like you're writing it off right now. And I want to clarify that the why will still come from people. The positive part I see from this, and maybe you see this in the launch of your new razor, which people have to check out and we have to remind everybody about. I insist.
That's going very well, by the way.
I know. But in doing that, you have the why. You want to create this thing. But 10 years ago, that why would have sat on a fucking shelf, because there would be no infrastructure. You couldn't possibly hire enough people to get it off the ground and compete with Gillette or any of these other things on any kind of a scale, or even Harry's, which is another version of like a startup that does that. That was impossible for people before. And even below the AGI threshold in that Rob Glenn 99% rule, there is a window of function that is absolutely revolutionary already, is my point.
Mm-hmm.
And
so this is what I mean by the why. I'm not complaining about that. What I'm trying to articulate is this whole thing would be going a lot smoother if they actually articulated the why right now, as opposed to what they're really doing, which is basically saying, just trust us. If you give us 10 megawatts of power in 10 years, and there's this thing sucking all the power out of the US, everything will be fine. Give us $25 billion right now.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's the problem here, is that they have not articulated the why. So somebody needs to articulate. If you do this, this is what we're going to accomplish.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it needs to be defined.
Okay.
No,
so
it doesn't
agree.
need to be. I'm saying they would be a lot more successful if they created like a vision of that future.
Sure. Well, I think with the general consumer public, in terms of a consumer,
that's what we're talking about.
Yes, right.
Because if you want to build the 10 gigawatt thing, you need to convince the people
public
along the way, the public, exactly.
That the why is worth
it.
And
that's one of the things that's so interesting about AI, in my opinion, is that it's not just this mega company. Like, the mega company is symbiotic to us. Like, it can't exist without us. So like individuals, I should say. So they have to go down that road together. And so they build the thing, and the thing's sucking power and doing calculations. Like, if we're just over smoking dope with our solar panels, eating food, like, who cares? Like, what does it matter?
Right. Well, I agree, but I think there are a couple of areas where it absolutely does matter. There are two tracks that I see. Love to hear from you. In chat room, I'm also curious how you guys feel about this. There are two primary tracks that I think this will have a massive impact on, and is already. It's not even if. It's happening right now. One is areas of technological drudgery or simple tasks that are necessary for work, like CPA stuff, or junior CPA stuff, and those kind of things, that are being done by AI in a way that giant corporations could afford a row of 20 desks doing this job, but any startup was screwed if they ever wanted to get off the ground. There was this glass ceiling that they would never be able to punch through without venture capital. And again, this is an attack on VC, if anything, because venture capitalists used to be able to pick the winners and losers. You would go and fucking Shark Tank tap dance in front of these dickheads and try to convince them that your thing was worthwhile so that they would dump some money in, own a big stake in it, basically just to give you the money to start up some level of production and some level of, finish your design and your marketing and all this stuff. And marketing ends up being some of the most expensive part of it, which is, by the way, why AI was being pushed for marketing as, in the early days. It was almost the singular push around it in the public was marketing. This is the way you do your social media schemes and all this stuff. You'll be able to post hundreds of ads for your shit. And that AI slop is all over the place. There's no question that's what it was being used for. But the reason is because that's the most expensive part of a startup, is that punching through and competing with Coca-Cola and all these other things was near impossible for any startup. And now this gives you a team equal in size to that, at least in the design world. You can make your own decisions as you would as a CEO, but you don't have, you can outsource this to an AI, because you'll never in a million years be able to afford this if some asshole doesn't sign off on giving you $1 million and owning half of your company. And so
I would define what you just said as the capital to start, and then the money it costs to get enough eyeballs to buy the thing you spent the capital on.
That's right. So AI has become an equalizer on that front, as far as a productive, intern, moving in that direction so far. Let me, and then I'll parse the other. Let me do the other road, and then we'll get to both of these. The other one is jobs never done. Things that we have written off because there are not enough hours in the day, there aren't enough people, you couldn't do it anyways, so why even bother trying to, set this thing, extrapolating and thinking about this, like having an Einstein sit at his desk and go, look, you're chained to your desk, just focus on this physics solution, this, optical chip solution, until you've got it, don't leave your desk. Well, previously that was impossible, and you would never even think that you could do that. You can't, like, enslaving intellect and creativity is one of the hardest things humans have ever tried to do. You can do it with physical labor, but you couldn't do it with intellect and creativity, because anybody that smart will also find their way out and will end up whispering in your ear and get you killed, Rasputin and Robert the Bruce style. So the second one is this area where and there are known unknowns and unknown unknowns in the realm of work and productivity and environmental fixing, problems, food production, all these things where we've just written them off because there were never enough people to do this. There were never enough, smart people to sit around and deal with this problem. And now you can do it. You could design one. Now, again, the early hallucination aspect of it, where people screw up, was true of people throughout science, but it took centuries for them to find their mistakes. This would take days by comparison, or something like that. And that's the other path that I think these are two very positive areas where the average person on our scale that isn't a robber baron or doesn't have billions of dollars now has access to something at a very low cost level that delivers that possibility. Does that make sense?
Okay. So I think that does, and I think that the sales pitch should be sell the second and you get the first for free. And let me give you an example. So you say, we're going to build this system, that we're going to build this thing that will be integral to us to figure out nuclear fission, sorry, fusion.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you invest this much now, it will give you this payback in the future, free
Mm-hmm.
power, let's say. So
Right.
like it's kind of like you, we need to spend a whole bunch of money to solve cancer. We need to spend that money, and then there will be no cancer.
Yeah.
Like the value of no being cancer is extending your life, not making your life cheaper. Does that make sense? Like
Yes.
that's a problem that you spend money on for humanitarian reasons or to like extend your lifespan. Whereas products like capitalism is about spending money so that you can have a value for it later.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you sold this buildup of all this stuff that we're doing as here's here's the benefit in the future, the cheaper thing, the more plentiful thing, the
Right.
more free time, whatever the thing is, and like the moonshot, when we do that, we're gonna come up with all these other things that are gonna effectively like make inventing new things easier, make starting small businesses easier, make healthcare, blah blah blah. So like I think that the better way to, instead of trying to define what it is that they're trying to make, which is this superhuman, whatever, they should be pointing at the task
Yeah.
that they want to solve so that you can connect the value to it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That's why I'm calling it a
I
marketing problem,
I
because I
agree.
think
I
they're
mean,
going about it all wrong.
I think one of the things that House Democrats could do, I would recommend, is that in the oversight of the tax breaks and the funding and the grants that they have going to all these AI companies, and when those people come in and have to sit in front of them, get commitments from them around these kind of things to drive this thing. It's like, will you dedicate, you know, effort among your AI to solving some of the greater problems that we have, and or how are
Sure,
you?
that's a great idea.
Yeah.
Right.
So while they're sitting in front of you, go, look, everybody wants to cure cancer. We know there are treatments, that we thought were impossible 10 years ago that are now, fairly commonplace now, even in like low end hospitals, they have access to some of these things. Clearly, there's progress that can be made. It is not this uncrackable thing. Will you dedicate, a certain amount of your, computational power, since you are borrowing power from our grid, to that task? Will you commit to that today because of the grants given to you by the American taxpayer, the tax breaks given to you by the American
Well, yeah,
taxpayer? Can you commit
that's
today that?
maybe what we're starting to learn from Trump. Like the government should be more transactional in these things. If
Mhm.
it could be, not should be. I'm not
Right,
sure if the should is
about
correct yet.
well, no, I mean,
But
I think the
but there,
benefit part of it, whereas you don't, what he wants is, we want a 15% stake in Intel no matter what it does. So if it ends up making the drones that eat,
right,
that decide that humans don't deserve to live and start scooping everybody up, will have paid for it and made a profit off of it, right? That's it. But
yeah,
the point of this, the difference in this would be that you would establish a baseline of, we believe you should, we're giving you this help, this support, this protection, by having your stuff inside the United States, and all that comes with it. What is the taxpayer getting in return? Ubiquitous across people, ubiquitous across, all American citizens, because whether they want to or not, the Amish people pay taxes, and their taxes are going to partly go to building this thing. They also get, infectious diseases. So if you were to come around with helping us get to a cure, that would actually, benefit them and their tax dollars, even if they don't believe in the technology, and where it works out in the electronic aspect of it. It will, it'll be
right.
worth their tax dollars being spent on this, even if they don't believe in technology. How will you do that so that it's, that's ubiquitous across, everybody? And I want to show everybody something real quick, because this is, and unless you have anything to add to that.
No,
Yeah.
no, yeah, we're
Okay,
good there.
so you and I were talking earlier about the robot part of it. So here's the thing. AGI and ASI. ASI you don't want in a robot. You want AGI in a robot. Now, will that matter at any point? ASI will be arguably, at least at our current status, until we get crystalline chips that, I guess everybody can have installed in their spine and whatever, transhumanism being what it is, down the road, some sort of Heinlein future that we can all talk about, is another thing entirely. But AGI in a robot is really what we're largely thinking of, because if we never had to sacrifice another fireman running into a fire to save people, that would be a good thing. Or a forest, or let's say we had a fire like we had in the Palisades that we couldn't send people in, but you could send fireproof robots into that could move across that terrain because they're bipedal, and they could stop fires, and if they were consumed in it, no harm, no foul. They would just either be repaired or recycled. And that would be a good thing. That would be a good future. I think we would all agree that if that's what robots did by and large, that would be a major leap forward for humanity. Again, policing is different than firefighting or helping put down sandbags when a flood is coming, right? Or go check house to house to make sure people are okay when there's fires breaking out and stuff after a tornado, something like that. Sending robots house to house to do that, as opposed to a human being who could also be killed or shot by some maggot who thinks they're a trespasser or a revenuer, which was one of the problems they had in the Carolinas, remember, would be a way better use of those things, where they're not making judgments, they're doing physically human-like jobs that are very dangerous, and we don't do, right? We don't, robot cops wouldn't be the necessary part. Robot, maybe prison guards, like tower guards or prison towers that would do stuff. That might make sense because they're 24/7 and they never get tired and they can look every direction at once and they don't have to, right? That starts to make sense. But not the ones that interact with the actual people, right? Human to human still will have value and still will have legal protections that cannot be answered so far with these things. But I think we can all agree that that's a necessity. And it will be, if all of these robot factories that are popping up, like this one, this is the inside of Figure A1's factory that they're building in, I think in Palo Alto. And there's a bunch of rooms for doing testing and stuff. But this is where they would make the robots. It's not a very big space. And they would move through here. It's very much like the Tesla and that Mexican car factory we looked at, the Chinese dark factories that I showed a couple of weeks back. But this will just, once they turn this on, right now it's operating. But once it reaches its kind of like max capacity for its size, it will just run 24/7, cranking out these Figure 1 robots, which are pretty amazing already. And the next generation will be even more amazing, and they'll just keep articulating outward, with the idea that they will have AGI or something close to it, or even like at the current form, it's plenty with their Helix system where they work together. And
they're a perfect example. I actually think their marketing is really good because they're like, hey, here's a robot that will clean your house. Here's a robot that will fold your laundry. They're like not talking about, here's a robot and it'll solve all the problems forever, and it won't kill you. They're saying it'll do your laundry.
Yeah.
Like that's got value to people, right?
Right.
So then I think their long-term thing, it doesn't matter what the AI is doing, what kind of AI is in it. As long as it folds your laundry, you don't care, right? The next question, though, is going to be, which happens with everything like this, is, well, that robot's folding my laundry and then it got done. Can it now? And like that's what computers were capable of doing. Can it now let me make a song? Can it now edit a picture?
Can it render this video frame by frame over time? So the best example, I think, like leading into what you're talking about, is when you went from like a Photoshop thing where you're doing one image at a time to computer graphics in a movie where it goes, okay, this thing's going to follow the physics of this, it's going to move, and this character is going to run through the scene. And when you would make it in Adobe After Effects or whatever software you were using, it took time to render it out, or the video frames. Even if you're just editing something, once you're done editing, to make one big file, it would have to render that thing out. So you would just leave it to do that, assuming that it's not going to come up with ideas that fix your edits for you and all that kind of stuff. You've already agreed on what it's supposed to do, right?
Right. So in this case, what Figure 1 needs to do is they need to create a viable product that somebody will buy. They need to get it out in the field. They need to have it start operating, doing the thing that they sold it to do. And then they need to, either the customers that have them or them themselves need to develop as it's being asked to do more, right? Which is effectively what happens with every technology, right? So
Right.
The question's going to be, is the thing that you got capable of doing that next task, even though it wasn't designed to do that directly,
Yeah.
or not? And so what Figure 1's hope is that they can put this physical object, which is the hardest thing to make, and get to your house, in your house. And then once it's there, over Wi-Fi, basically, they could teach it how to now cook dinner, or teach it how to take, like, I mean, there's already taking dishes out of the dishwasher.
Yeah.
But then now we get to, well, can it go get the package off my front stoop? Well, can it pick my kids up from school? Well, can it go to the store and shop for me for the week's groceries, right? Like, so you see what I'm getting at? It's like, like they have to solve the first things first, and then the market will effectively pull them into these other places, because people will inevitably want to try to do that, right?
Right.
Oh, I'm really mad at my neighbor. Will it go beat him up for me? Right? So like, now I'm serious. Like, now you got to like figure out all the bad shit people are going to do. And you got to try to figure out how to keep it from doing that.
Right.
Because once I own the Figure 1's robot and I go tell it to beat up my neighbor, whose fault is it? Am I the person who gets arrested for battery?
Right.
Or is it the robot? Or is
I didn't tell it to.
Figure
I
1?
was just talking out loud. It took my instruction, right? Look, Rand Paul is my neighbor. Who hasn't brought up the fact that he needs a good ass whooping again, like his neighbor did, and stuff? And I was just talking out loud. I was making a joke, and then I look around, and my robot was halfway across the lawn with a hammer, right? Yeah.
So, what we're in this like fucked up tension right now between the thought of what the future is and the things that are capable of doing the future, because it's not out there yet. It's not happening.
Well, okay. So
we need to get over that hump. They need to start shipping, and then we will figure it out as it goes. We're going to have to.
Yeah. Couple things. We have a couple of questions, and I'll get to those that Andrea has put in there from Turner and 56 Nick Rich, and we'll deal with those. This is an older video. This is 3 months ago from 1X, who are making the Neo, and it's like, it's conversational interactive AI. It's called Redwood, that works with, where it can go around and learn how to do stuff on its own that you tell it task-wise, because it like a Roomba, it has the layout of your home, and it has a limited things that it's allowed to do, and there it is trying to operate the door, and it figures it out on its own over time, like it, which is great, because it's, again, there's the why. So in that, what I just showed you with the hand slipping off and then doing it again, there's a bunch of whys in there. Why do you curl your finger in more? Why do you bring your pinky in a little more when you hold on to it so that it doesn't slip out? There's a lot of whys in the activity. So this robot in particular, the 1X guys, they're in Palo Alto. And they have this one that'll greet you when you walk in, that's at their headquarters, which I totally want to go to. But they're working on clicking up their factory as well within the next couple of months. This is not something that's like years away at this point now. This is happening currently.
They're showing you a video of one that's built. They just only built maybe 500 and not 10 million.
Right, exactly. And so, and right now, what everybody's doing is scaling up the availability of it, and then they'll they're doing a little bit of marketing testing, which you would do, and then they're gonna start being available. And I got to tell you, I'm very excited about the idea of a used shitty robot. One of these things. Imagine the 1X, if they do a 1.5X or a 2X, whatever this guy is, and they sell these, and they end up being 30 grand or 20 grand or what have you, and then they end up, upgrading as you do, like a phone or whatever, but it's still functional, still damn thing still works, and you can upgrade its software. It just doesn't have as articulate of fingers or something, or they're improving on it, but you're like, this is just fine. I don't need something like this, and you could buy like a fucking robot off of eBay that can do your windows and your laundry and all this kind of stuff, and you got it for like $800, which was the cutting edge, right?
Sure. Yeah, I mean,
that's going to be a thing.
Happen is
faster than people think. He's sitting.
I think that your life will be altered based on the capability of the things around you, like not the other way around, right? Like,
yes.
Like you're just like, it's most people sort of create this level of entropy with their surroundings, because that's just what's around them. Like that's
right.
what they have. So now you add this thing that has a different level of capability, and it's like we don't. The reason this tension to me is so interesting, because we have no idea what that's going to be.
Right.
But it's coming.
Yep.
And so like the only way it can happen is to just happen and figure itself out.
Okay.
That's really.
So let's also go to the fact that like a mixture of two things. And this is one of the things that made me think about, our kind of concept of making a startup that was impossible now leapfrog across everybody else. And if you looked at like Nvidia as a company, which now is worth $3 trillion, versus Intel or AMD, the chip manufacturers, which were focused entirely on CPUs, which is where everybody thought shit was going. And now GPUs are what's going to be the neural chip for most things right now. That was a giant leapfrog for Nvidia, from basically like shit gamers and crypto miners used to the essence of the computing platform that exists on the fucking planet right now. Yeah, $3 trillion evaluation. Like it's the chip. The Blackwell chip is basically running all the scalable cloud AI services that are being built. And so they're sold out before they make them every second, and the price is ridiculous. And people are like, that's absolutely insane. The oil market is a $7 trillion a year market, right? It's stupid. And nobody created oil. They just, somebody else figured out how to turn it into fuel, and people have been doing it ever since. They yank it out of the fucking ground. This is at least out of ingenuity that they've come to this point. But these guys, so the Figure is the OpenAI design team. So they own a piece of Figure, and Figure is linked to them. So because they were looking for a housing unit for what would eventually be AGI from OpenAI in something. So the theory is that the Figure one is the OpenAI AGI robot. But right now, they all link together so they can work in concert using this Helix software. This is how they figure out what's what and work together in concert, so you can have multiple ones working on a task together collaboratively. So this is robot collaboration that's happening around a particular task. And they just got an evaluation and raised $1 billion for the next phase of this. They needed I think $500 million for what they were planning to do, $500 million to set up their factory. They got $1 billion. That valuation is for scaling up from the ability for them to create 12,000 units a year to 100,000 units a year, which will be sold out on day fucking one. And if you want to see factories that are being built immediately, which no jobs, by the way, this is not going to be a manufacturing boom anywhere. There's not going to be anybody working in them. It's going to be this kind of shit for the next 5 years. This is the next, holy shit, everybody wants a car in the 1950s to the 60s. That's what this is going to lean toward, just for functional replacing workers. So, and their $1 billion that they just got values the company at $38 billion automatically, because that $1 billion with robot workers and AI extrapolates to what used to take a regular company to get from $1 billion to $38 billion in 5 decades or whatever the fuck they did. It can happen in a matter of 3 years. So that's its valuation just went dink. It just immediately to $38 billion. The company's worth, it went from being worth about $300 million to being worth $38 billion overnight because of this $1 billion that it got. Okay, so here's the questions from the chat, and we'll for Rob. And one is, do you believe AI able to solve the problem of fusion power, or is that too complex in terms of materials and systems needed to sustain the high temps and pressures required?
It's being used as an augment. It's currently being used as a way to augment the people who are working on it. So absolutely. It's not, you don't like make an AI and AI solves it. It's the collaboration of humans using AI as a tool to accelerate their work and maybe increase the ability to, or decrease the time it takes to sort of iterate, or a lot of what AI would be used for in that sense, like creating new materials, things like that, would be to possibly like look at a lot of options really fast, and decide which are the most fruitful for you to spend your money and time on. So that maybe you can get to that solution faster, or but it's not like inventing the process or inventing a new thing. It's got to be used as an augmentation. So
to that end, this is from the Clean Air Task Force, and they're super excited about it. But there are a couple of things when you're doing fusion that I think we've all seen in all kind of mad scientist movies, where they start cranking up the power and it starts to overtake, and then it blows up because they can't monitor how many cycles is too much and how many cycles is too little. And it's always this kind of like, that's why it was a mad scientist, because he had to literally just start seeing how far it would go till it would break, and then write down, well, it broke at that point, right? But that damage and reset and rebuilding is very expensive and took a lot of work and shit like that. Now with advanced simulations, because of AI, where it can simulate all the physics and it can simulate, it knows the density and the heat expansion of the metals involved and all this other stuff, it can run multiple simulations to see what the best case scenario with available materials is, and suggest tweaks to the building of it based on factors that might just be out of everybody's thoughts. And the other one is that it can monitor any data that is coming in and tell you if you're getting close to
consistencies or patterns or inconsistencies,
anything that will lead to a failure or a breakdown. And that's what stopped it in the past, is that they don't know where the crash is coming, and so they build this up, and then it would break, and they would take them years to get the funding to rebuild the thing, and then start from scratch again. And that's what this is really helping with more than anything else.
Yeah, and it just accelerates it. In anything where there's the variables are so large, the unknowns are big, or maybe the environment that it's in is too unstable or unpredictable. Like you can get close with simulation, but then you're never going to be totally right until you try it. And so that's where sort of this whole thing is sort of trapped in that area of like, they spend a whole bunch of time coming up with their best guess of how to do it, and then they basically build something to try to validate whether that's right or wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And then if they learn that it's right, they move forward to the next thing. That whole process of iteration is sped up by AI in theory.
Right. The next question was, there's enough hate bots on the internet. Can AI eliminate them? That's from
Sure.
In theory. The problem is the definition of what constitutes hate speech shifts so much that you'd have to change what its why is. Why is that hate speech? Why, and that goes to the soft A versus hard R problem that it had initially, that it was culturally insensitive to the the functional use of certain words by an in-group about like how can I tap dance around this shit, where they like to use the words, but other people using the words is bad, and so it doesn't want to be not allow them to speak freely, but keep other people from interjecting themselves. And then how do you define who's in that group and who isn't in that group?
Well, I kind of think of AI in the sort of loose sense of what you're sort of talking about is like we think about social media and just our electronics sort of, we're like fed by the algorithm.
Right.
I think of AI as a really great personalized filter. It has
Right.
the capability of effectively like you say what you want to see, and it just basically like hides everything you don't want to see. It shows you what you do.
Right.
I'm not sure if that's good or bad, but effectively it puts the power of the algorithm into your own hands, if that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can control it effectively, or it's going off of your instructions, and that's like that's where I don't want to get too far afield, but we've been talking about the big infrastructure level of AI, but
Right.
where the real power of it is in the little local AIs. And we're pretty much already at a spot where you can localize AI enough that it's good enough to do some pretty interesting personal
Right.
tasks. Um, those
Yeah.
things just haven't been packaged well yet into
Yeah.
sellable products, as we keep going back to.
There are a couple of things, and this Tomas Lind
There's
is
one more
the
question.
question. Yeah, does Hal or Rob think ternary computing will become a thing? It already
I think
is.
I think you skip past that and go straight to quantum.
Yeah, or optical. So one of the big advances that has happened
Oh,
recently,
optical.
is an optical
What do you mean
chip
by
design
optical?
using photons instead of electrons for computational stuff. That there was a big leap forward. I'll see if
Oh.
I can find it. It was in the news
So
recently. Hmm.
ternary, as I understand it, is non-binary. It's like
It's trinary. It used to be
instead
called trinary.
instead of
Yeah, it's
yeah. So instead
literally.
of yes or no, it's yes, no, and maybe, I guess, or I don't
Yeah,
know. Like you have three choices instead of just two.
yeah. If your
But
computer
my point
could
is
go yes
go ahead.
and no, right?
Well, you just have three choices of you have three answer possibilities of answers, which decreases the amount of information you need to like, I don't know, to do calculations, to define a letter and a number.
Hmm.
My point though is that like I don't know that a lot of time is being spent on that when the leap in quantum just sort of bypasses the need for like why have three and four when you can have infinite basically choices.
Well, the stability and production, because quantum chips. I mean,
Yeah, I
you're talking
guess
about
you're
this. Is
sure,
that
sure.
that's that whole thing of like you're thinking like somebody with a shop with a lot of computers in it, and the possibility of ASI and a big like deep thought computer. But if you're talking about like what would effectively be the new consumer electronics, or perhaps chips on board in robots and the like that give them greater expanded logical reasoning without a lot of power draw, one of the things you could do is trinary bounces the electron around, and in its
Yeah.
bouncing three times instead of just back and forth to try and come to a conclusion, literally A being the
Yeah, but
question, it could save on energy,
you're
possibly.
going to spend a ton of capital to to create a thing, which
Yeah,
would then have to like be sort of brought out into the world
yeah,
when you could also when you already have parallel computing, you already have like there's already solutions that are out there that get you to the same place without and there's
right.
bigger leaps. So yeah, what but the
What
photon based computing is not
it's
ternary, is it? It's still
No, no, no,
binary.
it isn't. I'm just
No?
saying, as far as the availability of chips, if you're talking about what the next leap forward, ternary, if it's electronic, if it's based on electrons, which is where that comes from, as opposed to photonics. Like, imagine if we all called our electronic devices our photonic devices in the future, because that's the shift that we're talking about. Electronics are based on the flow of electrons, and so this would even the sentence is fucking itself in a certain way. but photons are light and electrons are electrical particles. And so I'm speaking in caveman generalities in this, but they're slower and they're more power intensive. Think of fiber optic versus regular communication cables. For like Ethernet, fiber optic is way faster because of that very thing. It can send the data through the pipeline in micro in petamilliseconds or whatever it is, versus an electron flowing across an actual wire. It's just faster because it goes dink and it sees it on the other end because it travels at the speed of light down that cable. It's a similar kind of idea, is that it can send that information, and all you're doing is shutting a light off and turning a light on. And there are ways to regulate light going into someplace. Think of the way you create a skylight in a downstairs room by bouncing mirrors from the roof of the house. That's free light to your downstairs. If you built one of those things, there's ways of doing that using available light. So you could have photosynthetic software. You could have photosynthetic, electronics, photonics, as it were, would be a possible thing. That stuff that literally works when the sun comes up, and shifts when the sun goes down, or travels in space and pulls from any available starlight or sunlight around it and operates on that. It can measure based on its measurement. Electronics are powered by the light it's actually seeing. So it not only solve its computational issues, but it would also power itself. So that's extraordinary. That would be a big leap forward. And you wouldn't need ternary. It would be so fast and so power efficient. You wouldn't need ternary chips to do that. Now, if you're still dealing with electronics, yeah. Is this nerdy enough for everybody? Is anybody getting a nosebleed right now?
Yeah, so the question was, do we think it's going to become a thing? And of course it could become a thing, but that's a massive shift.
Yeah.
You'd have to basically redesign everything.
Well, and that's the only you'd have to switch from binary logic in software to a trinary logic in software, which is arguably something only AI augmented software could do. So when we talk about AI being able to do coding right now, switching from a binary to a trinary coding matrix would be pretty easy for a well-trained coding bot.
Once it worked. But
it works.
I think in history, that kind of shift in technology requires a black swan event of some kind. Like all the computers die and you start over, or or as you say, you would have to do it at a sort of an infrastructure level. So let's say that there wasn't. I mean, one good way for it to come out to be a thing is if you said, "Sorry, NVIDIA, you can't have 10 quadrillion watt whatever things you want."
Right.
The power, and so NVIDIA says, well, to solve the problem, to go faster, then we're going to completely change our entire architecture.
Right.
And that'll be this sort of skunkworks kind of project, and then that becomes the shift. Is into this new place because you couldn't go any faster and you had to.
Well,
so something like that would have to happen for this.
Right.
For that.
There's
for this to be a thing.
And you could argue that it already has, considering everybody's conversations about 9xing and 12xing the power draw that is going to be necessary to run all this shit. They're already dumping that money in.
Again, those are projections, but you don't know what you're doing with it yet, and you don't know what's going to be available in the future when you're doing the thing. So again, I don't even believe, none of this, it's all bullshit. It's all bullshit.
Right.
I'm dead serious right now. When you hear these numbers, it's just like when Trump's NVIDIA, these 18 companies are going to invest $400 quadrillion together. And you're they just said it. It doesn't, they're not going to do it.
Well, and you know what? One of the things is,
and you're triple counting.
Dude, you know how he's going to be right about it while still being wrong is, remember what I told you about figure one's valuation? $1 billion equals $38 billion. Because they're extrapolating with like, okay, if to have this, we have to have this, we have to have this, we have to have this. So if we have this, we're going to have this, and this. It's just like building a
Right.
car factory right now. You're aiming for an almost completely automated, if not fully automated factory. You're not going to start building a factory from the 1940s right now. You're going to build a factory for 2035. If you break ground right now, you're going to assume all automation at the level that you have and increasingly efficient automation, so that you're going to have to go, okay, the doors are going to have to be this big because eventually our output is going to reach this because we project efficiencies in this area as we go forward. So there is a bridge ground that, okay, go ahead, man.
I'm just saying, to put it simply, in order for that future to happen, it's got to happen. I'm saying it in
yes.
Like it's got to
right,
actually,
Mr.
like,
Stickler.
There's a whole lot of, well, I just mean there's a whole lot of space in between now and that future.
Mm-hmm.
And a whole bunch of other things are going to happen for the need for that many chips. Do you see what I'm getting at? So, and until we have a need and a desire to do it, and then the money will exist for them to spend to make it.
Right.
Until that happens, it's not going to happen.
Well, okay. So they're right.
It's just talk.
Yes. There's also they're doing more than talk in Arizona. There are 7 chip fabs being built because they're already behind on production for the Blackwell stuff and all this stuff. And that is the theory is from NVIDIA and the like is that they're building on top of these available chips. So the Blackwell chip, which is the cutting edge, is going to design the next chip. That's the theory they're operating on. And if it does, it will have, in some ways, they're assuming a percentage of limitations that currently exist, that it's not going to reinvent physics in the process. And so they're going to buttress up against power dynamics no matter what they do based on the current stuff. Now, it might have a breakthrough where it goes, what are you assholes doing? Well, I've looked at all this, and if you built it based on these components, you wouldn't need any of this shit, and it's super cheap, right? Which is possible.
Forget about AI doing it. The market might do that. So, like, the reason why they're putting all the money into the fabs is because they believe that there's going to be a demand later for the chips, and they're
already there. They've already sold out what's going to be made. Yeah.
Yeah. No. You're right. So there's a desire to have them. Mm-hmm. And in order to fund it, they're creating a future where they're like, that desire is going to increase 100-fold, 1,000-fold.
Right, so which is stupid.
That's the part that they're doing. Okay, so along the way of them building out the factories, it doesn't matter if it's a human, if it's AI, or if it's just a dog. Like somebody comes up with, oh, you know what? We just found this new simple way to use light or whatever, and all of a sudden, like, that's gone, and you're like you're either converting the chip factories into the other thing, or you're like, that's the legacy, and you're going off in this other path. My point is like, these futures that they're talking about, they have to still happen, and a lot of stuff needs to happen along with it. Like, you know, there's going to be a robot in every house. Well, sure, if everybody wants it to fold their laundry. Mm-hmm. But it needs to be more than that. So why are they going to want the thing in their house? What is it going to do? And we can theorize what that is, but we're not going to know until people actually say, sure, I will spend $10,000 to have a thing in my house that folds my laundry and does my dishes. Like, you're not going to know that future until the thing happens.
You're talking about, right now, what you're talking about is televisions. There was a period where...
Exactly. Look, there's... cars, televisions, computers, they all have this moment.
There was a difference, though, in these things in the same way that, like, smartphones, there's an argument, like, and Andrea had a question about, like, how do we get the older generation to use, like a smartphone if they still use a flip phone or whatever. There's no reason why they necessarily should or have to.
They don't have to.
As long as it serves the process, as long as they're able to get what they need out of the device, they don't have to upgrade to these things. And that thing, it's up to the device to offer something, is what you're talking about, I think, to that generation or that person to make them want to have it in the first place. Right.
Well, now the reason why older generations use a smartphone instead of a flip phone is because flip phones aren't made anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the only
By the
choice.
way,
they need a phone.
Yes, Moon Girl is killing it in the chat room. Like, this is so nerdy, my glasses broke and taped themselves. But Moon Girl also quoted Marty McFly, television, yeah, we have two. And it was like, nobody has two television sets, right? There was a period where you had to be talked into buying one of these things with the promise of, we've got a radio. Fuck do I need? What's going to be the difference? You can see what they're doing? Because most of what they were doing on TV at one point was just reading it. They were still doing a lot of radio-esque stuff on the television. And then eventually it became the way you got your news and the way it answered questions you didn't know you had in a specific way. You got images of stuff, and that changes and so it jumped ahead. Same thing with cars. Like, cars solved a certain amount of travel, but early cars couldn't go on a long car trip. Range anxiety was a real thing. All 1950s horror movies are just like the fucking Thriller video. They start with somebody running out of gas because all those movies were based on range anxiety. That's the hilarious part. So we still have that to deal with electronics today. The difference, I think.
I heard
go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. I was going to say I heard an interesting thing that Henry Ford was a big supporter of the 5-day work week, because he wanted a weekend so that people would use his car to go someplace for the weekend.
Right.
Like, he needed a reason to have the car, right? And the weekend was the reason to have the car.
That's when most people went for a horseback ride.
Right. So my point is like, it's like you create, like, there's this future and this, like, the AI is, it's like this, it's the solver of all things, but we haven't defined what it's solving yet. And so as the market becomes clear as to what it's used for, then a lot of changes happen, because it changes your everyday life. It changes your habits. It changes your time. It creates different things to do in the time you have. Like, so the chip fab is happening because the logic is, whatever that future is, it's going to need a fuckload of chips, right? And so that's probably a safe bet, but I don't know of AI. Open AI is like a tough bet, because you don't know if I think that
they
by
don't even know if they're profit based at this point.
They don't, and I think that the NVIDIA deal is interesting because they didn't actually give them money. They basically gave them
free chips.
They effectively said, we're gonna lease chips to you, kind of, sort of. We're gonna give you chips for equity in your company, effectively. So NVIDIA assumes that, I feel like NVIDIA might think that there's going to be a single cloud. Like, if you think about the cloud resource provider as sort of the foundational element, that eventually it's like they're just going to have a big enough user base that they're going to need enough chips to do stuff with.
Well, and also,
that's why the money will be there.
Okay, so self-driving cars. Self-driving cars, I find, are ridiculous because what you're asking for is basically a taxi you own. And so why would you even bother to own one when you can just order one cheaper than having it? So why would you have a self-driving car?
Effectively.
You would just we have self-driving cars. Someone else drives it, for you. It's silly. But if you're going to own a car, it's because you want that freedom of doing it. Now, you might want it to drive for you sometimes, but it's not going to be just a fucking box you roll around in. That's very odd. And to your kind of conversation about Henry Ford wanting the cars for the weekends, it's interesting how stuff comes full circle. I want to show you something right now. This is an ad from Kawasaki for
That's cool.
I think it's the something Leo, the CO Leo, or the Core Leo. They are building this robotic walker that acts as a horse, looks like a lion that you sit on, and there will have to be a chip in each leg in the body itself, right? It's going to need like sensor chips trained on data so that the core one doesn't have to use all this shit all the time and use a bunch of power. So you can, offload that onto. And by the way, they prototyped this. There was a lady riding a real one initially. This was just their ad for what they're promising. But the idea is that it doesn't leave fucking motorcycle tracks everywhere, and it's basically like just a cyber horse. So you don't have. I mean,
it's an ATV.
It's exactly that. It's a walking ATV.
It's a snowmobile, a four-wheeler, a motorcycle. It enters that space. Just real quick before we go too far. JWB whatever 52. He says, "I guess I'm the only one who wants full autonomous self-driving car permanently." I agree. I actually want a fully autonomous car that's my own. And to the subject of the weekend, and so in my eyes, having a self-driving car is actually no different than having an office. And if I can spend, let's say 2 hours by myself doing work and travel between Chicago and my shop in Rockford, like that's valuable time. When I'm driving my own car, it's not valuable time. It's 2 hours or an hour and a half it's lost to me, right? Mm-hmm. I might be able to talk on the phone, but I can't do work. So it actually enables me to do work and travel. So I could actually be more mobile if I had an autonomous car, and I would work less. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like I would have 2 hours there, 2 hours back. That's 4 hours of work. I could spend 4 hours there. Yes. In an 8-hour day, I'm more productive with a self-driving car. And so the idea of self-driving, actually, you want to think about what's the opportunity loss or what's the opportunity gain that you're getting while you're sitting there in that thing, traveling. It changes the map.
Well, I would argue that that's no longer a car. Then it's just it's yet another form of transport that you have access to, and whether or not you own it or not is not. Right.
It could be like those mini, those tiny houses. Like if you had a tiny house, but it was an office, and you're like, I'm going to leave my house, go in the backyard, and go to my office. You're like getting separation. Like it's the same as that. It's just a mobile. Right. It's a mobile. Like you could just be like, I just want to be alone, away from my family for an hour. I'm gonna go jump in my self-driving pod and be there for an hour. It doesn't matter where I go.
Well, here's I'll show you this. This is kind of what you're talking about. Let's see. Open this up here if I can. Open up, you stupid thing. This kind of thing where you have these little office pods in your your backyard that basically separate from the house so you can go work and you're not in the house with everybody else. And it's $19,000. That's about what you pay for a car, like a small, cheap car, right? It's just this with wheels on it is what you're talking about.
If you go to a car show and you look at like Mercedes had a pretty awesome self-driving car, concept car, and it was basically a little lounge in there. Like it wasn't a car; it was an open space, and it was kind of like a.
So I would argue that's true, but I wouldn't call that your car. I would call it that your.
It's a placeholder for that thing, right?
Sure.
The thing that it's like a slow transporter.
Yes. Right. So But the work on it would be, I would say, the car you would have is the thing you would have on the weekends to go take a trip someplace, go off on your own.
Sure.
Where you could take that office with wheels and go out, and park it someplace like a tiny house or like a camping trip, still work from wherever you are.
So,
your office is now in the woods someplace.
Right. My partner, Kristen, she loves to ski. And I can't ski because my knees are just gone, right? And so it's like if I go down that hill, it's possible I'll be in the hospital for the next 3 weeks, and then I can't work, right? So I'm like, I'll go with you, but I'll work while you're on the hill or on the mountain. Sorry, hill.
Okay. So hold that thought real quick. hold that thought real quick, because Summer and I are the exact opposite. So you and you and Summer can sit in the lodge and work on your laptops, and she can do her work, and you can do your, and then I'll do the skiing.
So the trip, if you go to Colorado to ski, the trip from Chicago is you get on a plane and it's like 4 hours, 5 hours because all this time it takes, and then you got to get to the mountain, and so you're basically like 6 hours of travel both ways.
Right.
It takes 12 hours to drive there.
Yeah.
About, I think, I'm going off of memory. So if we had the pod, like we wouldn't need a hotel that had the ability for me to work. I would just get in the pod. The two of us get in the pod with skis. We would go. She would ski. I would work. We'd stay at a hotel at night. It just completely changes everything.
Yeah.
And that 12 hours in the pod going there is just a replacement for the plane. And we could both work if we wanted to work from home that day while we were traveling, right?
That's
so I'm just saying,
you could see stuff along the way. You would stop along the way and do stuff, and it would be more of a trip.
Right.
So one of the reasons, and we're getting close to the end of the hour, and remind everybody, this is Rob Glenn from Root Design Chicago. He and I have these nerdy conversations, and I just decided to unleash them on you guys on the regular, because these are important conversations that need to be had.
Every Friday.
One of the AI programs reliable, like the ones offered by your internet provider? Are they reliable? Are free AI programs reliable like the ones offered by your internet provider?
I don't know what that is.
It depends. I don't know which ones you're talking about, but like Gemini and like the free versions of Gemini, the free versions of OpenAI, the free versions of ChatGPT are pretty damn reliable. Like I would just check everything, but
the same. It's the
same
model.
thing. They're just putting they've got to figure out who they have a contract with. You know how you can do it? Ask their AI who that company you're getting it from, AT&T or Comcast or whatever it is. Ask them who's the contractor that provides the backup, the background for the AI. Who's it built on? Was it Anthropic? Is it Gemini? It will tell you, and then you'll know its reliability. And it's probably they're just using the API for one of them and providing it for you as part of their service, which happens all over the place. So I would argue probably you're already using ChatGPT, or you're already using Gemini, or you're already using Claude, but just with their own API.
There's only so many of them.
Right.
There's only 4 or 5, right?
They're not using Quinn or any of the like the other like raw models. They're using one of the big companies because they view them as more reliable. So here's the other part of this, and this goes to your whole automated cars and the idea of the freedom and autonomy that comes with this idea is, and I think a lot of us have had issues with Starlink and its owner for a while. And you might even still have issues with the owner of Amazon, for example, like Bezos. But there's certainly fewer issues with him in terms of technology than anything else, because he has something he wants to sell to everybody all the time. The worst thing you have to worry about is ads all the time. But the availability of this stuff, Kuiper is now going online. So if you don't know what Kuiper is the alternative to Starlink. And these are low Earth orbit satellite systems that will create, internet around the world that you can link up to. Here's my suggestion: Amtrak, since Trump is pissed at Elon Musk, sign a deal with Kuiper to provide internet on all trains, especially the cross-country ones. Because one of the reasons why our train system has softened over time, and why bullet trains were so important, is because they go through areas where there's no internet. What do you solve for when you're traveling that you can't just fly by taking a train, other than you don't like to fly, is the fact that they go through areas where you're just cut off. The Amtrak, when you're going through the mountains, if you're going from Chicago to Los Angeles, you go through Colorado and all those areas, and you're off grid effectively. There's no Greyhound. It's better to take a Greyhound bus because there's cell towers all along the route, but there aren't on the trains. But if they had Kuiper or Starlink, but I would recommend not, and they made that available, it would change the entire matrix of people doing a travel like you're talking to. Would you have to buy an automated car to go to Denver from Chicago over a couple of days?
Right.
If you could hop on a train, do that same work. Right?
Yeah, so I'm I've heard a really interesting way to think about the sort of infeasibility of bullet trains, and that is that like you're spending a lot of money and you're not getting very big return.
Right.
Like you can only go so fast, right? And the difference between 100 miles an hour and 65 isn't big enough to make it worth the expense
Right.
to basically upgrade the train system, right?
Yeah.
So instead of spending all the money trying to save a little bit in time, what you do is you could spend the money to make the trip more productive or more
Right.
valuable, or
Exactly.
so don't worry about shortening the time. Just make the experience such that you're not losing the time.
That's right. That's
Um,
right.
and
That
that's
you
what I'm
actually
talking
gain
about.
from it.
Like you say
That
with
you
the
gain
Wi-Fi.
from it. You have that autonomy you were
Exactly.
talking
You
about.
gain
You
from
also get to see the country from the ground. If you're afraid of flying, it gives you that kind of comfort in that regard.
Right.
You could stop every so often, get out,
Another
walk around, get back on the train when it stops at a station, see something along the
right.
way. Along the way, shops would pop up, those kind of things. Like Amtrak, I'm just saying,
So
I'm doing you a solid.
supersonic flight that's an interesting supersonic flight. So the Concorde, like it never took off because
No
it
pun
was
intended.
somewhat valuable to go to Europe because you could take off and land and then have a day after you got there. But the day back wasn't valuable because you got there too late in the day. So who cares if it took you half the time? It didn't
Hmm.
matter. And so I was reading a person that would say that the only value of the Concorde was that you would see other people on it
Hmm.
that you might want to interact with. So it was actually more of like a way for you to maybe run into an important person or be
Yes.
seen.
Yeah.
But the
Right.
actual
Yeah.
value of the trip and the time saved wasn't worth the expense of the flight and the maintenance on the plane and all that other stuff, which is
And
one of the reasons why when you start seeing all these like this money put into like much faster planes, like again, you can use your money better at increasing like making the experience better. It's cheaper to do that and it's more valuable,
right.
possibly.
Yeah.
Like you say, with connectivity, with comfort, with allowing it to be cheap enough to bring maybe your loved one with you, so you weren't away from them or your family, things like that.
Right.
I have a pretty hard stop at one,
All right. I'll
so
let you go. You got 3 minutes left. I'm gonna throw these in
you got
for
3 minutes.
yeah. Throw these in for next time. This is this guy bought an old. You know how I love old robots. He bought an
Oh yeah,
old shitty automation robot from a car shop that they used to use before they upgraded to the smaller ones, and he turned it open source and used open source software that's available online right now. And the gear that he bought it was $40,000 when it was initially designed, and he bought it for $200 from this shop that was closing, like this factory, and then just reconstructed it thanks to ChatGPT and the Sims available. And there's the instructions for doing it. He's made open source, so you can download the software. If you bought one of these things, you could use the software he did to control it now. Like, just think about the impossibility of that in 1987. Just leave that there for the second. The other one is HTX Studio built an automated assembly line of their own using available gear just to make their own shit instead of sending out all of his own packaging. He was just able, using stuff available online to buy and AI, to pack these boxes. He made his own box assembly thing and created it. And this is just available online stuff. Again, fucking possible 5 years ago. This is just a guy
so
in
this
his
is
house.
exactly what I'm doing
Yes,
right now.
that's right.
I mean, I'm not exactly like this, but when you start running a business, it's not the thing you're doing. It's all the stuff that supports what you're doing.
Right.
Like if you made a product like that, how do you get it in the box? And
That's
you got
right.
to attach it. And there's like so many little problems along the way to get that thing out the door. And that's what labor in China always solved for free,
Yeah.
right? It was like it just happened because they were like, we'll just throw more people at it. Well,
Yeah,
here in the US, like if you don't want to spend money on labor, you've got to go this direction where you basically like make all those little steps as free as possible.
that's right.
Um,
And
and that's what will
I'm gonna show this at
go
the
ahead.
end, and then you're welcome to go. And thanks for having this conversation with me in the open, so people know that it's actually happening. Because this is the kind of conversation that is needs to happen around this stuff, and I don't know that it's happening certainly in the halls of power right now, because we have literally the stupidest people that could possibly be running the government right now in the face of the advances that are happening right in fucking front of them. This is that arm I just showed you with this is a kit robot you can now buy with a 3D visual sensor on it that can tell you can teach any objects, and you can use voice control to do all kinds of shit. That's a toy now. That's a fucking toy now, and it's got a chip built into it that can recognize colors and shapes, so that you don't have to use a bunch of energy and computation power figuring everything out from fucking scratch. Once you program it, it runs offline, by the way. It doesn't need the internet. You tell it to do stuff, it does it. This is a matter of scale.
Right.
The software that runs this thing could run something the size of a house. It doesn't give a shit. As long as it's physically structured to do it, and you've got the materials to make it happen, that's that. And again, you can tell where shit's going by how advanced toys get. And I'm going to leave it there.
Absolutely.
Thanks so much, Rob Glenn, for being with me today and helping me give everyone a nerd nosebleed about these kind of things. I will continue to be the psycho techno optimist, and you can continue to call bullshit on the assertions that the people in the AI tech companies are making, and the lack of focus on a customer base currently that makes it so that they all get to sell to themselves until they figure this shit out, I guess.
They kind of are selling to themselves right now.
That's
really,
right.
They are. That's why it's a bubble, because the people who are putting money in are them.
Right. Absolutely.
hoping it'll turn into something.
That's right.
All right.
So,
Well, thanks.
you're awesome.
Thanks everybody. Have a good weekend, and thanks, Hal. Happy birthday, by the way. One day, I sent you a text yesterday, but happy birthday today.
I appreciate that, brother. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I'll let you go. Take care, and I'll talk to you a little bit later.
All right. Bye, man.
Okay.
Bye, everybody.
Bye. There he goes. Ladies and gentlemen, Rob Glenn, Root Design, being the voice of reason in front of all this. Because, again, everybody's rushing to this, what would be this almost end times expectation. And I got to say, I've told you the guys this before, but the world is not going to end. It ain't. Just get used to the idea. And most of the stuff that people are afraid of is the same shit they were afraid of with every other technology that came along. Are there differences in this? Absolutely. But will ultimately it be a net positive? Of course. Also, yes, for those of you that were asking, especially in the chat room, I was taken up in the rapture temporarily, but I came back voluntarily. So, yeah, I know most of you are like, you can do that? Yes. You can do that. You're allowed. And most people, since time is it doesn't exist in heaven, you can be up there for what feels like centuries and then come back to earth, in your current form and go, all right, let's have some fun again. Yeah, I left the stove on. That was it. You're so pumped for that day. It's a fucking party. I agree. So, anyways, I adore you guys. There won't be an afternoon show because I'm driving to LA. And we will, at some point, I'm going to find a way to make this a high production value show, because I know it can be a lot to take. Okay? I know. I like to take in and consider. But I'm going to, I want to incorporate sort of the production stuff available to me to make it at least a little more of a dog and pony show for you guys, as opposed to a philosophy show, to kind of show you this stuff, and I'm working on it. You're watching Spirit Alley? That's right. And I showed you a little bit of that on my birthday, but this is like the kind of stuff I busy myself with in my free time that I don't spend with my loved ones. In my nerd pocket, as it were. That's what I do it on. Thank you. It will be a great show. I don't even know what I'm going to talk about, and I know it's going to be a great show. So I appreciate you guys. I will see you later. Take care of yourselves and take care of somebody else. And if something big happens, I might jump in and do a show just for the shits and giggles of it. But until then, I'll see you guys tomorrow on the radio show. I'll be doing it from LA because I'm going to Steph's birthday party on Sunday, I think it is. And so I'm sticking around for a couple days to do that. But yeah, that's it. I feel slightly guilty for nerding the shit out of you guys.
But I just wanna dance. Ooh, yeah.
Slightly.
Take a chance. Let's go. The machines, they advance. Oh no, all I want is
Smartphone's got a glitch, it's plotting my demise.
Laptop's acting twitchy with its glowing eyes.
Wired world attacking, can't they let me be?
I'm just trying to groove and feel the energy. But I just wanna dance. Clap, clap. Take a chance, take a chance. Don't stop. The machines, they advance. Oh no, all I want is romance. Alexa screaming, stop the beat. Roomba spinning under my feet. TV growls and starts to fight. Man, these robots ruin date night.